Hello, Maximus here with a rather fun matchup, I think, between Egypt and Carthage. You can see our builds here. For Egypt, 4 camel spears, 4 archers, 6 Thureos swords, and some Ptolemaic cavalry. While I brought a Carthaginian rush build consisting of 4 mercenary Iberian swords. These are my only skirmishers. Well, they're not really skirmishers, but I use them as such. And then you have 6 Libyan infantry, 2 mercenary noble fighters, 2 late Libyans on each flank, mercenary Celtic horse, some 2 units of Carthaginian cavalry, and just the standard general's bodyguard. Now I am at a slight disadvantage here because I have to move up the hill, so I'm making sure that I'm walking, and since my opponent is running, you'll actually see that his units become tired before mine because they are running, and that's a slight disadvantage for him. Really making sure to walk here because fighting up the hill is enough of a disadvantage. I could of course just camp on this hill, but that's no fun. I wanted a little challenge. And so it's a good idea here to bring some camel spears together with some Ptolemaic cavalry and some Thuria spears. They can participate both with their spears and by throwing their javelins at the cab fight. So these would be difficult to face with any kind of traditional cavalry wing, but as you can see, the way I'm using my cavalry here is I'm using very cheap cavalry and then just 2 Libyan hoplites, and together these units cost only 1200, but they are really resilient when it comes to the Carthaginian cav can stop heavy cavalry, eat the charge, and then the late Libyans rush in with their massive 30 bonus versus large. So I find it works fairly well, and I needed to defend the flanks of my rush here, because the rush can very quickly fall apart. However, what works to my advantage is that any sort of rear charge here that goes wide is going to have to run up this massive hill, so they'll be tired. Now I'm just going to rush in here. I see that his units are already active because he ran over here to meet me, so I'm going to charge in with my mercenary noble fighters straight away. And over here there's some maneuvering going on to see who gets the best position. He obviously wants to get around here, but I'm keeping these swords in reserve. And his thorax swords should get hammered by my noble fighters. They are eating some pila here. I popped headhunt, and you can see they are dropping very quickly. Look at the kills rising on the noble fighters. So this line of thorax swords should crumble. Now I'm just sending my Carthaginian cavalry up here as kind of a suicide unit to draw some of his forces this way rather than coming back around here. So I'm pushing up with my late Libyans over here. I'm just trying to keep his units, make his units run as far as possible. I'm pushing up with my mercenary Iberian swords. This unit of Carthaginian cavalry got a unit of Egyptian archers, which was nice. You can see his peltas is supporting here. They can also skirmish fairly well now. But already thorax swords going down here. Libyan infantry aren't nearly as effective, of course. They cost about half of what the mercenary nobles do. But this is really the key to the strategy here. It's opening up the center with some noble fighters, peppering the key units here, doing some HP damage with my swords. They are already starting to drop. And now I'm just going to chase his general away from the main engagement here. And I want to postpone that as much as possible. And here he's bringing some camel spears. So I'm turning my mercenary Iberian swords around, and they're going to start throwing javelins, and the camel spears are going to drop fairly quickly. I'm going to get a rear charge on them here. And camel spears, they have the scare effect, but in a position like this they're going to drop really quickly because they only have 15 health, so now 15 armor. So there you go. Now I'm moving in with some Libyan infantry on the flank of this royal peltas while I'm sending the mercenary noble fighters into the center. They are very tired and these guys are fresh, so this is going to take a while. But you can see all over the line my guys are doing fairly well. This Libyan infantry not doing too well because it got rear charged by Ptolemaic cavalry, which is going to be a problem later on. Over here my Carthaginian cavalry is running down some more Egyptian archers. And his royal peltas are doing fairly well against my exhausted troops there, but the thorax swords are wavering all across the line. Somewhere it's more equal. I'm removing my general's bodyguard away from this Ptolemaic cavalry. Over here my Libyan infantry and noble fighters have wrapped up the fight. His camels are dying. I'm continuing to shoot javelins from my swords at his camels. And they don't have the armor to stand up to this kind of missile fire, so he's not going to get any rear charges with them. So here his royal peltas are starting to drop. I have 3 units fighting them, which is not the most cost-effective way of doing it, but I wanted to keep the general's abilities away from these fights, so I can break them more easily. I'm using my general's bodyguard to just run over the Egyptian archers, chasing with Libyan hoplites or hoplites. Here the Ptolemaic cavalry is going to get a nice downhill charge into my mercenary Iberians, but I have these late Libyans waiting, and you can see the kills just increasing by a crazy amount, but only on really cheap units that already have done quite a good job. And so he lost a lot of Ptolemaic cavalry on that charge, but he now is pulling them back through this unit here. So his Ptolemaic cavalry is doing fairly well. Now we can see another nice rear charge coming in here. They're going to get quite a lot of kills here on high quality troops. 12 on the charge, and then the kills are rising up to somewhere around 30 it looks like on the charge, which is quite good. Still not enough to break this blob up. And as you can see, the balance of power is quite heavily in my favor, and by taking a quick look in the battlefield you can see that my Egyptian adversary is quickly running out of units to really deliver devastating blows with. Now I'm charging these Celtic light horse into Ptolemaic cavalry, which is of course suicide for them. Lost half their unit in my charge there, but they managed to kill some Ptolemaics, and well, it was just really to stop them from cycle charging over here. Now it's just a matter of mopping up the different blobs that are formed, getting some missiles in here from my mercenary Iberians. These thorax swords are holding their own against mercenary Iberians and some more mercenary Iberians. Here as well my Libyan infantry lost that fight for some reason. They're wavering, and I'm sending my general in here to stop the cycle charge, just to chase them away, to give them a tantalizing target. And here you can see his royal peltas. They stuck in the fight for a long time, but now they shattered. And his Ptolemaic cavalry, it's still doing some damage, but as you can see, not nearly enough to stop me from routing the rest of his army here. These thorax swords have quite a lot of kills, but they are up against mercenary Iberians, which are extremely cheap. They have nice melee defense, but very little armor. And over here as well, thorax swords got rear charged by Carthaginian cavalry and are fighting at the front here. So now it's just a matter of getting this blob moving down and attacking the Ptolemaic cavalry, which is going to go down fairly quickly. They are being downhill charged by very elite sword units. And now my opponent calls GG anytime. So that was it. I think this would have gone fairly differently if I'd run up the hill instead of taking my sweet time, and my opponent, having the high ground, could have spared some of the stamina of his troops by not running. But maybe he didn't expect me to engage that soon. Still, it was an interesting game, and I think indicative of what you see more of in patch 15, the Emperor Edition, with a lot less elites and more low-level, mid-level units. So thanks for watching, and I'll hopefully see you again.